All right, it looks like we are live now. I'm going to call to order the regular meeting of the City Council for July 6, 2020. It looks like we have a quorum, and I see all present and accounted for. The first order of business then is Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Councilmember Gardner.
Let's pray. Father God, we thank you for this day that you've given us, Lord, and we thank you for the opportunity that we have this evening to serve the city of Mammal and represent this great city. And God, as we meet tonight, we ask for wisdom as we discuss the city's business, and we ask for protection today and every day for all those that serve and protect our residents each day here for the city of Mammal. Lord, thank you so much for blessing us with a beautiful city that we can call home. And we are so thankful for the opportunity that we have each been given to serve in this city. And we ask for your blessings and guidance in all that we do this evening and everything that we do for the city of Maumelle in the future. In your son's name we pray, Lord. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Gardner. The next order of business is the approval of the minutes from the June 15th regular city council meeting. Y'all should have received a copy earlier today of some amended minutes via email. At this time, I'd open those up for a motion to approve or discussion.
Motion to approve.
I've got a motion to approve from Councilmember Vapurzian. Did I hear a second?
Second.
A second from Councilmember Saunders. Any discussion on that matter? Seeing none, please unmute your mics to vote, but all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries and the minutes are approved. We received one public comment on a non-agenda item pursuant to Ordinance 1000. We're only at this time reading the public comments related to agenda items. That said, there's a chance this it's related to an ordinance for mandating masks. I know we will be discussing that later on. And so if that does get added to the agenda, we will read that public comment if that becomes an agenda item. So the first order of business then, or the next order, I should say, is the financial report from our new Director of Finance, Liz Mathis. I've also asked her to give a department report to talk about a little bit what she's discovered and where she's at coming in. So she'll be giving us a 2-for-1. Miss Mathis, the floor is yours. I show you are muted though.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Norris. Today, I've got some highlights from the May financial reports. I will have June reports for you at the next meeting. As I get more familiar with the city's finances, the information in my reports may evolve a little bit, but for now, things should look pretty familiar. Trying to get these slides to forward here, and I don't know which screen I'm supposed to touch. There we go. This is a fund overview of our revenue year to date in the general fund. So these are through the end of May. The general fund revenue is up about 8.2% from the prior year. There are some variances on some of the revenues. Some of this has to do with the police and fire fund, where we were showing it budgeted in general fund, but we've actually moved that to a new fund now. We'll get some of that straightened out so that it looks a little more appropriate to where it's actually being recorded. And then we've also got some lot fee turnback funds. Those aren't received until third quarter each year, so that's just a timing variance. The remaining variance that you see on the revenue to budget this year is that reimbursable grant, the federal grants, which is a reimbursable grant from FEMA. Most of this project probably will not be spent in 2020. The revenue line is going to remain down for the year, as will the related capital expenditures. It's one of those that's going to walk side by side. When we spend the money, then we'll get the revenue back for it. Our county millage tax is over budget a little bit year to date, but trending slightly behind the prior year, about 1.1% behind. Franchise fees are slightly under budget, but they're ahead of the prior year. State turnback funds under budget year to date and 5% behind this last year. Our county sales tax, which reflects sales tax collected in March, is up 5.9% from the prior year and is trending slightly ahead of budget. And the city sales tax is also up 28.6% from the prior year and is ahead of budget. The parks and recreation fees and senior wellness center fees are behind budget and prior year. I haven't delved into it too much, but I would assume that has to do with some closures through March, April, and May related to COVID-19. On our street revenue, overall, it's up 5.4%. The county millage tax and state turnback funds and the county millage tax is trending similar to the general fund. It's just under last year, about 1% behind. The state turnback funds are over budget and 10.5% ahead of last year. And our street aid program funds are slightly under budget, but they're 1.8% over the prior year. On our sanitation fee revenue, you can see they're slightly behind budget, but there's no change from the prior year. And then here's that half-cent sales tax for the police and fire in its own fund now, and that has been, it is ahead of budget year to date and ahead of the prior year. So. Looking at the expense side of things so far this year, overall general fund expenses were under budget by about 7.9%. And you know, the different departments, some of them are up. Most of the departments that are up from the prior year, it seems to be in employee benefits and personnel, and it's trending along with the budget. So no major variances there other than in public works. There's some work that we need to do, and you'll see this in a minute when I flip over to the expenditure side on the streets and sanitation funds. We need to do some work on allocating the actual personnel costs to where they were budgeted on those divisions. And so I think that we maybe changed some things at the beginning of the year and it just didn't get all the way through the right way. So I'll be taking a deeper look at that to see why right now it looks like personnel costs are way up from the prior year and over budget in public works. But you'll see on the next slide, they're way down in some other areas. And so it's just a matter of making sure that we've got things classified in the right departments or the right funds. There's just our general fund spending by category. No major changes there from what it's been historically. Here's where I was talking on the street funds. Street expenditures are down 15.5%. Personnel is down 29.9%, which is actually more than what the general fund is up. So it's just a reallocation of where those expenses are hitting. And our operating expenditures are over the prior year, and it has to do with some of the third entrance design expense and the timing of some reimbursements there. And on our sanitation expenses, overall, they're up 4.4%, but they're $93,000 under budget. Personnel here is also a little over prior year, but $83,000 under budget. And that also may have to do with some of that reallocation of those personnel expenses from the general fund. So that's the overview of the May financial reports. Again, I'll be doing June's pretty quickly here to have for you in a few weeks and get a little further into things there. As far as my first few weeks here and what we've been working on, what I found, and kind of where the focuses are for this next quarter. Top focus obviously is our 2018 audit. We do have that scheduled for later this month for them to be on site. So we are wrapping up all of 18's pieces to get to the auditors, and they will be here in the next several weeks. So we're moving forward quickly with that. Once we get 2018 underway, we're going to begin tackling those 2019 reconciliations and audit preparation. We're also working to establish a more detailed monthly close process that is going to prevent future audit delays. There's a little bit of challenge in doing this while we're behind. You can't do reconciliations for this year until you get caught up on the other ones. It's a little bit of a snowball effect there. But we are working on creating a really strong routine here to make sure that when we close out a month and present financial reports, that's it, and we should be audit ready. Going to be spending some time reviewing the fund transfers, particularly between streets and police and fire, to make sure that those are being done on a regular basis, either monthly or quarterly, as part of our financial close process. Also, as we close out 2018 and 2019, as part of that audit work, I'll be making sure that all of those transfers and allocations were made appropriately. And then as part of our current year review, I'm going to be reviewing all of the budget adjustments and resolutions just to make sure that we captured them all. Shannon tried to get those updated before she left, but I haven't taken a look at them myself. And so I will be going back through those to make sure they were all reflected in the financial reports you received and in our software system. And then, you know, because there's not enough other stuff to work on right this minute, our 2021 budget process will be starting fairly soon, and we're going to be getting into that. Mayor Norris and I have been discussing the schedule and planning for that 2021 budget process. So I've got a pretty busy quarter coming up. I knew that coming in, that it was going to be busy, but have confidence that our team will be able to get on this and start to get some of these older pieces wrapped up for the city.
Thank you, Ms. Mathis. I'd go ahead and ask if there are any questions or comments from council members.
Motion to approve the financials.
Second.
We do have a motion and second, but it looks like we do have some discussion. Councilmember Scott?
Yes, I was wondering, what was that we were saying about the police and fire dues? That's almost $800,000. Why is that so far under on the revenue side? Hoping to make up that $0.2 million shortfall.
It's actually just that it was budgeted in the general fund, but we set up a separate fund for it. So you're seeing the revenue in the other fund now instead of the general fund, and we need to kind of move the budget over to that fund.
Are there any additional?
Where is it reflected in the other fund?
It is. If you were looking at the financial packet, it would have been on page 8.
That 8 of 13?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And it's $648,000 year to date that we have received on this police and fire funds. And then the rest of it that we haven't received yet on the general fund side is the lot fee turn back, which will be a third quarter receipt.
Okay. So we're not concerned about our revenues then?
I haven't seen any indication of that at this time. In fact, they're trending slightly ahead of budget.
Okay.
That particular revenue source.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Gardner?
Yeah, this kind of follows up on what Councilmember Scott was just asking. And Ms. Mathis, first of all, thank you. Welcome to the city. We're glad to have you on our team. My question was also about the police and the fire fund. I had asked this, I think at 2 meetings ago, before you had come on board, about those transfers out of the police and fire fund. What's your expectation on when we might do that? Do you think monthly, quarterly? What's your thoughts on when would be the appropriate time to do that?
Once I get a really clear understanding of how all of that is going to work, which is part of one of my goals here for the next month or so, looking at all of those fund transfers. Ideally, in my mind, those should happen monthly.
Okay.
As part of our close process, if not monthly, at least quarterly.
And do you know if one of those happened? We had asked about it at the beginning of June, and I'm not sure if any money ever got transferred over to the general fund. Of course, I know we're just talking May financials. I was just curious if it happened in June or not.
We have not made that adjustment yet. I wanted to make sure I fully understood every element of making that transaction before we did it.
Okay. And then to follow up on where it's going to hit the general fund statement, will it be equally prorated between the police department and the fire department on that revenue fund balance report?
Mayor
I guess
Norris, you may want to answer that.
Yeah, so what you're talking about is the transfer from the general fund to the police and fire fund for that half-cent public safety tax. For revenue purposes, in the budget that we passed, we showed half of that anticipated revenue in the police budget and half of it in the fire budget.
Okay, so when we move that over, it'll basically be split equally and show up as a revenue item on the general fund statement then, under police and fire?
I don't have that. So you're talking about in the financial packet on the
I'm
revenue.
talking about, let's see, it's page 2 of the financial packet. It's page 9 of the council packet. I think what Councilmember Scott was referring to, the police department and the fire department are showing as under budget on revenue. Councilmember Scott, is that what you were referring to?
Yes, exactly. It's about $800.
Yeah, right. So that's my question is, when
Okay.
we make that transfer out of the police and fire into the general fund, is that where that's going to show up? Is it going to hit the revenue there and show hopefully turn it back to positive?
That
This
would
is-
be a better question for Ms. Mathis. Although, as I'm looking at this, we'll have to look into what that 2020 budget was of what amounts to 1.8 million, because we didn't even budget that much for. Or is that the turn back, Liz?
Some of it's the turn back,
Okay,
yes.
lots of turn back.
Yes, and that's part of the reason I haven't made the adjustment yet, is because I really needed to get a better understanding of how and what was triggering the movement of these funds between and where they were budgeted. And it's just something I need to spend a little bit more time with.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Mathis. I appreciate it.
We'll have
Councilmember-
answers for you soon.
Councilmember Mosley?
Yes, Ms. Mathis, I just wanted to welcome you and thank you for coming aboard. And you seem to have a pretty good grasp already here if you're with your presentation and all that. I just wanted to ask if you had any observations, general observations you wanted to share, maybe an open mic. If not, that's fine too.
I think that really, it's just going to take some time digging into some of the details on some of this stuff for me to fully understand some of the questions you have. And those are the areas that I particularly wanted to address, were those fund transfers and how that money was moving interfund. And then the other thing is really establishing that close process so that when you guys get a financial packet, to me, it should be reconciled. Everything should be kind of put together with all the I's dotted and T's crossed and transfers made, and any of that stuff needs to be done on a monthly basis. If you can get your monthly operations and your monthly financial close down and then prepare your financial statements, then things like an audit become more of a non-event. And so that's my goal. That's where we're trying to get to. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take some time to get 18 and 19 wrapped up, but we're getting there on 18, and 19 is going to follow right behind it. We're going to go on and start working on 19's reconciliation and close out while they're working on the 2018 audit. And may actually be able to do some work testing internal controls and some of those routine procedures simultaneously with the audit firm, if we choose to retain them for the 2019 audit as well. So just working through things a day at a time. I've got a whole lot of notes here on questions that I have that I need to look into further, questions that I've heard you guys voice that we need to look into a little further. And hopefully we'll get all of that wrapped up into you pretty soon.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And again, welcome aboard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Was there any other discussion? I don't see any. I did want to point out in the council packet, we received the sales tax receipts for what would have been the month of April. They are, you'll recall for March, there was a pretty large increase. When we looked at the NAICS codes, it actually, it was interesting how that came out. It'll be interesting to see if that was correct or if they come back later and change that. But for April sales tax, if you look, we were down approximately 30,000 for the 1% city sales tax, which still puts us in decent shape if you consider that that does include the roughly $40,000 that the state took out because of the audits and cap rebates that we were aware would come out. So that actually means if that didn't happen, we'd be above the year prior. And nonetheless, just to put it into context, we are still ahead of the 2018 city sales tax for that same time frame. So while the COVID pandemic is certainly not over, it looks as though April would have been the month that had the most closures, and we seem to have weathered March and April fairly well. So with that, if there's no further discussion or debate, I would, we have a motion and a second. Last call for any discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the financials, please unmute your mics and say yes.
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 All opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Mathis.
Thank you.
The next order of business is the Planning Commission report. However, there was no Planning Commission meeting last month, so I don't know whose turn it was, but you've escaped this time. So I'd entertain a motion to have all ordinances and resolutions read by title only.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. All right, the first item of unfinished business is Ordinance 991. That is the ordinance dealing with the police sick leave accrual. I'm asking that this be tabled until August 3rd. We still don't have the Attorney General's opinion. I have been in touch with Representative Lowry, who has stated that he believes we should be getting that here this week, if not pretty soon. So at this time, I'd entertain a motion to have this tabled until August 3rd.
Motion offered.
Second.
Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second to table Ordinance 991 until August 3rd council meeting. All those in favor say yes.
Yes. Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. The next order of business is the first reading of Ordinance 992. This is a similar provision or similar ordinance, except it deals with the fire department. What I'd like to do is go ahead and have the first reading of this at this meeting, and then the second at the next meeting, which would put it on third reading at the same time that the police ordinance is on third reading. So Madam City Clerk Treasurer, if you could please read that by title only.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Mammal, Pulaski County, Arkansas, ordinance number 992, an ordinance of the City of Mammal, Arkansas, adopting provisions for the payment of firefighter sick leave accruals at the death or retirement and for other purposes.
Thank you. And just as a reminder, this was the companion piece for the fire department that we added at the time we had the third reading for the police, which is why it's two readings behind. And so if there is no further discussion or debate on ordinance 992, it'll be on second reading at the next council meeting. Seeing none, the next order of business is the second reading of ordinance 1008, amending section 94-9 of the Monumental City Code. Madam City Clerk Treasurer, if you could please read that by title only.
Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Mammal, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1008, an ordinance amending Section 94-9 of the Mammal City Code to permit the mayor or his or her designee to apply to the Mammal Planning Commission for amendments to Chapter 94 of the Mammal City Code, zoning regulations, and for other purposes.
All right, is there any discussion on this ordinance? Councilmember Scott?
I just have a general question about city code, really. Where in the hierarchy of kind of rulemaking does this lie? It's not considered like an ordinance. It's not considered a law, is it? Like do that with the golf course, and maybe our city attorney can answer how much weight does city code apply when there are questions about the content?
I guess, I mean, for city issues like this, or that are more, this is kind of procedural. So it's going to govern how we handle that procedure as far as amendments being considered in the order in which they are considered by either the commission or the council. And I'm not sure I'm fully understanding your question.
Well, when we were voting on the issue at the golf course, it seemed like city code spelled out some things, and it's like we didn't have to pay very much attention to the way they were spelled out. I mean, other considerations could outweigh what the city code said. So is it a rule? Is it a law? Is it a suggestion?
So, I mean, it's going to depend on how it's worded in the code, because sometimes it'll tell you whether it's a guideline. Like when we were talking about the golf course, those are all guidelines. So you are to consider all of them. There's none of them in particular is to have precedence over the other. It just depends on how it's phrased in the code. And of course, that it does not conflict with state or federal law. You know, if it does, then we obey state and federal law. But the code itself spells out some things that are, you know, our procedure, and we should follow that. As far as if it tells us the procedure to follow, that's what we need to do. And if it tells us that it's a guideline, then we should use that and consider it as a guideline. But there's not a hard and fast rule of how much weight we have to put on each individual guideline.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Is there any additional discussion on ordinance 1008? Seeing none, this will be on third reading at the next city council meeting. The next order of business is the second reading of ordinance 1009, amending the Mammal zoning map. Madam City Clerk Treasurer, if you could please read that by title only.
Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Mammal, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1009, an ordinance amending the Mammal zoning map and for other purposes.
All right, Mr. Mark Redder is here to answer any questions if there are any. I'm not sure if there will be any discussion at this time, but the floor is open if there is any debate. Seeing none, this will be on third reading at the next city council meeting. Thank you. From there, we move on to new business, of which we have none, and which leads us directly to mayor's comments. And the first thing I wanted to point out, is go out of order here a little bit, is I included in the council packet a provision from the Running for Public Office, which is published by the State Board of Election Commissioners, just reminding the city council and the public at large that the time to file for city council is coming up. According to the handbook, the time to file begins July 29th and ends at noon on August 5th. And so each section of town or each ward has a council member position that is up for election this year. My position's always been, ever since I was on the council and city attorney, if anyone has any questions about this process, whether you're on the council or just a member of the public and you'd like to know more, I think that good spirited, healthy, tactful campaigns benefit the people and actually the candidates as well. So I'm always open to talk with anyone about anything. And I think you'll find that most of the city council is, including maybe the person that you may be considering running against. But with that, I want to go ahead and give a little bit of a COVID update. I passed out on Friday. I emailed y'all a copy of the governor's executive order on Friday afternoon or for his afternoon briefing. It was announced the governor was passing an executive order that would authorize cities to mandate the wearing of a mask. And a model ordinance was drafted by the Arkansas Municipal League and disseminated out to everyone. Of course, that announcement in the model ordinance didn't come until the council packet was already out. So I wanted to know this. It's a little bit of a shift from the prior policy, which was that cities couldn't do this, to now cities can mandate it. And then y'all should have seen the sample ordinance. But one of the interesting things about that is that there was not a provision for cities to be able to enforce that. What it was is law enforcement officials would be able to encourage and educate if they saw folks that were violating it, or if they were receiving calls on that, either from businesses or whatnot. So you all should have seen a copy of that already and has been passed out. I wanted to touch a little bit, and we'll probably open that up. I know in Alderman's comments or council member comments, council member Mosley was going to discuss a sample resolution that was included in the council packet. So we'll have a chance to talk about that a little bit here in a minute. But I wanted to give an update, the COVID-19 update. I've received a little bit of information from folks, I guess all over social media. There was someone who posted that we're not wearing masks at City Hall. My policy has been that if you can't social distance here at City Hall, you're to wear a mask. In the front of the building, the public facing side of the building, there's only one employee up there, and that is the receptionist. We've placed the sign so that people aren't supposed to be coming within 6 feet anyways. And I've followed up periodically with that and hadn't heard, nor have I seen people kind of crowding around that desk. Nonetheless, I went out today and added some chairs around to serve as a buffer to make sure that we are protecting that 6 foot social distancing there. And so I wanted to go over that, and then just to open it up for any COVID-19 discussion that we may want to have at this point. Might be a good time to do that if anyone has any questions. And let me back up. The governor, there was an interesting press conference. I want to say maybe it was last week, where the governor was holding up a mask in one hand and a football in the other, and said, folks, these two are related. If you don't wear this one, the mask, then we're probably not going to get to have this one, the football. I have this entire time relied on the Arkansas Department of Health and the governor's leadership in these health matters. And they are strongly encouraging the wearing of masks when you can't social distance. And I would like to echo that, not just for this council, but for the public out there, that I recommend and encourage people who aren't able to social distance to wear a mask unless you have a health condition that prevents that. And so I just wanted that to be on the record. It's what I do when I run into the stores and can't social distance. So, and one more thing before we jump to the COVID discussion, I wanted to give an update on COVID or on the Fourth Fest activities that we had. I'm not sure if y'all got a chance to see the parade / convoy that went around town I thought it went really well. I may be biased, but I think it was really neat. Multiple times through the drive, it sort of showed to me the American spirit that's like, we're going to go on, even though we're in this time of pandemic. Things may look different, but we're still going to celebrate our independence. And so the route, you'd go through some neighborhoods and there'd be no one out there. And then you'd go through the next neighborhood and everyone would have their lawn chairs set up in their lawn as they were watching the parade go by, or people had gone down to the street to watch to the corner to watch the parade go by on a similar street. We made an effort to hit every ward, including crossing over the boulevard, much to I think our police and firefighters' chagrin, as they don't like us crossing the boulevard with a parade, but we made an exception. That also, we had the fireworks display. I think it was a success. I've heard great things about it. I think people were socially distanced. I didn't see anything that brought concern. I mean, I didn't go up and check everyone's group, but it definitely didn't concern me what I saw there. So with that, I think those were pretty successful. And what I'd like to do now is go to council member comments. And I know Council Member Mosley, we could start with you.
All right. All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, I've been contemplating the idea of masks here in Maumelle, and been mulling that for the last 3 weeks. And I'm very interested in seeing the reopening process continue on as rapidly as possible. I'm very pleased our economy has responded as well as it has, and I really want to see it continue. I am concerned about the number of cases that are coming about, and the ease that people seem to be getting this. I've been paying attention to what goes on in Texas. I've got a son that lives down there, and they've gotten to where they have like 10,000 new cases a day, and very concerned, and are actually pulling back and kind of going back and closing some of the bars and public places, and they've mandated very strongly masks be worn now in public places, and I think there's a fine associated with that. I'm not sure I want to go that far, but I had thrown in the sample ordinance that was for Eureka Springs. I thrown it in the packet as just a discussion item to throw it out there and see what council member comments were. And then in the meantime, the governor went ahead and issued a sample mandated mask ordinance that he would be okay with for all the cities. And they actually incorporated a lot of the Eureka Springs verbiage into the one that the governor came up with. And anyway, I like what he came up with. The only involvement with law enforcement is if a business mandated that masks be worn in his business, and somebody came in and was asked to leave because they didn't have a mask on, he could call the police and the police would remove him. So that's about the strongest, I think, the ordinance states. But I wanted to, at this point, just open this up to discussion and see if there's a majority of the council that would like to proceed with the governor's suggested ordinance.
So really quickly, we have the resolution that was in the council packet was the resolution encouraging the wearing of the masks. The model ordinance that we're referring to is the model ordinance for mandating the wearing of masks. And so we'll go ahead and open that for conversation. It looks like Councilmember Vapurzian has his hand up.
Yes, sir. I don't know that I would be in favor of an ordinance, but I would not mind a resolution stating that the city council is in agreement with the governor, and we greatly desire the safety of our constituents, and anytime social distancing is not available, wear the mask. My problem with an ordinance or finding anyone is I talked to Chief Pickard tonight about this, and I said, how would you enforce it? And he said, we can't. He said, there's no way to enforce it. He said, we don't have the staffing necessary. He said, there's no way for us to enforce it. So passing a law that's unenforceable is a dog without teeth. And but I would be in favor of a resolution that said, we, the city council, of Maumelle, are asking our citizens to wear masks when social distancing is not available inside public places. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Holt.
Yes, as of Sunday of last week, when we went into work at my job at Dillard's at the fulfillment center warehouse, when we got there, we were informed that it was mandatory from that moment on that if you're in the building, you are required to wear your mask. You would have to understand the gigantic size of that warehouse, and you're not 6 feet. You're probably 60 yards sometime from somebody, but you wear your mask anyway. It is mandatory, so we're used to that. Also, just for the record, I was in the grocery store this week at Dillard's and happened to ask the clerk, have you got any masks yet? And she said, yes, we have. And she showed me a large display. You can buy the cloth mask in black and white, black or white. There's, if it's all right to say so, they're $7 for 5. And they're extremely comfortable and easy to breathe, and not a problem at all. And the last thing is that I wanted everybody to know that Tuesday was a work day for me. I didn't get off until 3:30, but I rushed over to the gymnasium and the community center, and I was able to spend a few minutes with Chief Payne, and I wanted to obviously tell him that celebrate, glad for him able to celebrate his retirement, well deserved. I didn't know that he was on the cattle ranch, but now I do. Anyway, I wished him well, and I wanted everybody to know that I did get to show up, but didn't get to spend but a few minutes. But I had a great time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Was there any other council member comments? Councilmember Saunders?
Thank you, Mayor. I had to unmute. I have 2 or 3 things to say about this issue. First, I would like to thank the mayor I'd like to thank you for your attitude about social distancing with respect to a requirement to wear face masks. People do not understand that being said, people don't understand the face mask situation. There are people like me out there that die from wearing face masks. When I went to the VA this last time for the oncologist, I had to wear a face mask, and my blood oxygen level was well below 80%. There are people dying from this. Now, the American Medical Association and the World Health Organization have brought out studies showing this, and there are some people that are concerned more people are dying from lack of oxygen that have pre-existing conditions than are dying from the virus. So we want to think twice before we force people to wear a mask. Second, it causes your blood carbon dioxide level to spike. Third, it raises your core body temperature. These masks are not particularly good for you. There is some argument or question as to whether they're even effective or not. Now, politically, they're always effective, but in reality, they may or may not be. I don't know. That's an argument. But I would strongly object to our city, like Alderman Vapurzian said, passing some sort of ordinance to require a face mask. I don't have a problem with resolution to encourage certain people to do it. But again, there are a lot of people like me, and the world doesn't revolve around me, but there are a lot of people like me that are already respiratory challenged that have problems with this. I limit the amount of time I have to wear that mask. It's a suffrage for me. It's not just an annoyance. So I think we ought to think twice before we look at any kind of ordinance or what have you to force people to do it. I don't think we've thought through the whole thing if we do something like that. I don't have a problem with resolution. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank
Mayor.
you. Thank you, Councilmember Saunders. I really quickly, I know there's a couple other folks. I really quickly want to state what my personal position has been, is that from the very beginning, I've listed that the health decisions, listen, the city doesn't have a doctor epidemiologist on staff, no experts on infectious diseases. I've relied on and have been thankful for our governor and the Arkansas Department of Health, who I think have called it how they've seen it. And so I want to echo, I personally want to echo their position that they are strongly encouraging the wearing of masks. There are folks that I think have health issues that may prevent those. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Don't get your medical advice from me. But I want to echo what the governor and the Department of Health is saying and encouraging those people who can't social distance to wear a mask. Councilmember Scott?
Yeah, I have heard from a couple of constituents who would like to see an ordinance. However, I like the wording in the resolution that Eureka Springs had in theirs, and that supports what Councilmember Saunders says, is that we do strongly encourage people to wear masks if they can safely do so. I know I wear one all the time because I have a very vulnerable person, you know, who's close to me, and I would just die if I brought something home, you know, inadvertently. So I wear a mask, and I don't think it hurts to strongly encourage people to wear masks, social distance, if their health permits them to do so.
Thank you, Councilmember Scott. Councilmember Williams?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councilmember Vapurzian. Here at City of Faith, you know, we're a group home, and social distancing is not, I mean, nothing really that we can do. We all live here together. And so we have taken it on ourselves based on the numbers of cases in Arkansas to go, we policed ourselves, and we've put ourselves back in phase 1. So we're not allowing anybody out. Nobody goes to work who doesn't already have a job and that kind of thing. The thing about this, what the governor is suggesting is, you know, the only thing that can be enforced is it helps businesses enforce their rules and not allow people in without a mask if they so choose, if that's the kind of business that wants to do that. And I support that 100%. I want to see the numbers go down. I want to see us have live meetings again. I want to see the economy get back on its feet. And I want to see my particular facility not have to be on lockdown all of the time. And if this helps, I mean, I agree. I think masks are going to help. Until we have a vaccine, I think the mask is the way to go. And so I am in, whether it's an ordinance or a resolution, I think I would prefer a resolution, but either way, I support this 100%.
Thank you, Councilmember Williams. I do want to say, for any businesses out there that are asking someone to leave their premises and that person is refusing to do so, can and always has been able to contact the police department to ask the police department to trespass that person, saying that this person's no longer wanted on their property. So the police can do that now, and periodically do, if customers are not adhering to that establishment's rules. Councilmember Tierney?
Yes, I've been out in the public quite a bit, and I've noticed that probably 80–90% of people are already wearing masks. So I would not be in favor of mandating that everybody has to wear one, you know, because of cases like with Mr. Mosley and like that. So while I have no problem encouraging people to wear masks, I'd hate to mandate it because then that would ostracize anybody who is unable to wear. So I'd like to keep it on a volunteer basis.
Councilmember Gardner?
Thank you, sir. I would support, I think, either of these options. I think what it does for us as a city is it makes a statement that we're wanting to protect our residents and try to follow the best guidelines that are out there. One thing that I am comfortable about with the ordinance is that it was crafted with the help of the Arkansas Municipal League. And I've got a lot of respect for them and for the work that they do over there. And I appreciate that it ties back into everything that the governor's office and ADH is trying to do. So I know Mr. Mayor mentioned that at the beginning, that he's been leaning on ADH and what the governor says for everything. And so I do appreciate that this sample ordinance that they've given us does kind of go lockstep with what the state has been doing. One of the things, and Mr. Mayor just kind of mentioned that while there is no enforcement or penalty, and Madam City Attorney, if you'll kind of help me out here, from the way I'm understanding this, it basically puts the burden back on the business and gives the business an opportunity, or I say business, any establishment where a person is not willing to leave the property if they're not wearing a mask. It just basically gives the police the ability to go in and ask them to leave, which they, like the mayor mentioned, they can already do. So in terms of enforcement, that's really it. We can just ask them to leave that establishment and help educate them as it says. So is that my correct understanding? Is it basically just ask the police to help that way?
Well, and that is exactly, I'm just going to echo what the mayor and Councilmember Vapurzian have already said, but the police can right now arrest somebody for criminal trespass. If a business owner has a reasonable rule and says you have to follow this reasonable rule and they won't do it, and they tell them you have to leave and they refuse to leave, that's a situation where they can be arrested already. And as far as, the ordinance does have a ban, it does say that it's banned in the city of Mammal if we adopted it for our city, but there are definite struggles and challenges with enforcement of it as an outright ban in the city. I guess, did that kind of answer your question, or?
It does. I guess I've listened to pretty much every day of the governor's press conferences, and I understand the issue with however many cities we have in the state of Arkansas coming up with their own resolution or coming up with their own ordinance, and that could just be a quagmire. So I appreciate the attempt to have something that the entire state could use on a localized basis if we wanted to. So I guess from that standpoint, I'm just a little uncomfortable writing our own unless we wanted to go that route. I appreciate what they put forward, so I would support something like that if we came to it. And as Councilmember Saunders said, I don't know if it'd be appropriate for us to add language, then we're changing it up, but just to add language about those that can safely wear a mask. So all right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Vapurzian.
In the resolution by Eureka Springs, it says the city of Eureka Springs strongly encourages all those who may safely wear facial coverings to do so. And if you go to that top paragraph, second whereas, it says because the public health and disaster emergency and declaration of the state of Arkansas as a disaster area resulting from statewide impact of COVID was declared anew. I think we're just agreeing with what everybody knows. And but I do think it wise of us to make a statement as city leaders of how we desire, for safety purposes for those who we serve. But I do like that statement, strongly encourages all those who may wear facial coverings to do so, because then it gives people like Councilmember Saunders the option in case they're not. So thank you.
Thank you. And by the way, the Eureka Springs resolution was it lists Eureka Springs, but that is the model resolution that the Arkansas Municipal League had passed out prior to Friday, when the governor's office worked with the Arkansas Municipal League, or vice versa, to draft the ordinance, which is why the language is so similar. Yeah.
Would it be necessary for me to make a motion that we adopt a resolution similar to that Eureka Springs? Well,
so that we don't have a resolution presented to the city council right now. I was going to summarize this. We have kind of three things going on. We're in alderman's comment or council member comments. We've discussed an ordinance, and now we've discussed a resolution. Neither of those are on the agenda. We can add them to the agenda by a motion from the council, and then discuss them or deliberate on them. The resolution was in the council packet.
I think it would behoove us, if we're going to do this, be expedient about it. So I'll make a motion that we put this the opportunity to add a resolution to the next city council member on tonight's agenda. Did I confuse you?
I'll second that motion.
Let me make sure I understood that motion. Your motion is to add the Eureka Spring, or the resolution that was in the council packet. That was the model of Eureka Springs, to the agenda tonight.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Would we need to wait till the next city council meeting to, or?
I wouldn't recommend that. Hang on, let me ask the city attorney. This is normally where I think I'd lean over and whisper something. We had, the city attorney had prepared for the possibility that the council might want the ordinance, and so she's formatted it in our current format with everything. Madam City, do you have an opinion on adding this resolution?
And this is with, I guess, the changes that you would want would only be that the city name would be changed to Mammal versus Eureka Springs. No other changes to it.
I'm fine with that. It's up to the consensus of what everyone else would think, because it's in line with the ADH and the WHO. So.
Right. So with the model, I had formatted it for Mammal and kept it exactly as the mayor sent it out for the governor's model, or the municipal league's model. If this is a model, I think we'd have a vote on adding it to our agenda. If the mayor is on board with that, there are two provisions in our code. One that says we can add to the agenda by majority vote, and another that says filing requirements. If they're not timely, the mayor has to approve. So mayor and council would both have to approve adding it. And then we would just have to be clear on the way that the resolution will be written will be exactly as it is in the packet, with the exception of the city name being changed.
Right. Thank you, Madam City Attorney. Councilmember Scott.
Are there significant differences between the ordinance and the resolution, or are they kind of basically the same and the ordinance just has more words?
Really? I mean, so there are differences. There are significant differences that, there is specific language in the ordinance that says that our city requires the usage of facial coverings according to ADH guidance, and that we would do education for any businesses who require facial coverings, and we would do further education with the public that law enforcement would do that. Those are some more specific things. And then the city clerk would have to publish this ordinance as well as mail it to the individual businesses. So, I mean, there are some more specific steps in the ordinance, but when it comes down to enforcement, I don't know that it would be that different.
Okay, I kind of then prefer, well.
Councilmember Scott, I believe you broke up there. You said you'd prefer.
I think I prefer the wording of the resolution, the strongly encouraging, rather than going through all of the gyrations that were just explained by our city attorney. That this is, it makes a statement. I think it covers the feelings that we have. It shows a care for the public and for the businesses. And I just like the simplicity of it.
All right. Is there any additional discussion on the motion to add this resolution to the council packet? Councilmember Vapurzian.
Do we need to read the public comment?
Not until it's on the agenda, sir.
Thank you, sir.
And then that'll be the first item after the reading. Is there any other discussion on adding this to the agenda?
Did you say, Mr. Mayor, that this resolution was designed by the Arkansas Municipal League?
Yes, it was the model resolution, and it says Eureka Springs, but I got it from the Arkansas Municipal League when they emailed out their model resolution.
Thank you.
I'm not sure who specifically wrote it all and whatnot, but it came from them. So if there's no further discussion, we have a motion to add this resolution to the agenda. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, say no.
Yes.
Motion passes. It is added to the agenda. Madam City Clerk, if you'd like, I can read this because I pulled up a few things and okay. So I'm gonna mix the title up here. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Mammal, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, a resolution to be entitled Resolution Number 2020-16, a resolution by the City of Mammal encouraging the use of masks in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic. First and last reading of a resolution from me, I hope. And with that, Madam City Clerk, I believe we have a public comment.
We do. From Ms. Pat Landis. And the subject, she wants to discuss mask. Okay. Well, I'm just going to read it as if she's speaking to you guys. I'll speak up for you. Will you please mandate the use of face masks outside of our private homes? Our lives and safety depend on the myriad of regulations passed by various levels of government. Wearing of mask when with others is no different than building and fire code regulations. Of the speed and the construction roads and bridges, requiring seat belts, regulating for air quality, and much more. We all think the COVID-19 will not impact us, but just this week, a close friend here in Mammal found out her son and his family, including a 4-year-old girl, tested positive and were ill. This morning, her husband became ill and she is fearful for all of them and herself. I am doing my part by pretty much quarantining, and when I do have to go out, wearing a mask out of respect and consideration of others. If our federal and state government would have done their jobs back in March, we would not be in the danger we are in now. Don't follow their lack of leadership. Mandate mask. Pat Landis, 202. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you for that.
I'll
All
make a
right.
motion to accept resolution 2020-16.
Second that motion.
We have a motion and second. Is there any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and take a vote. Please unmute when you vote. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 All opposed, please say no. Motion carries and resolution 2020-16 is hereby adopted. With that, we will return to council member comments. Is there any additional council member comments? Going once?
Would you
Going
mind sending
twice?
us that resolution once y'all have it typed up?
Yes. Hopefully we can do that tomorrow, get it signed and maybe even post it on social media if we're really lucky.
Thank you.
All right. Was there any additional council member comments? Going once, council member Mosley.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the city attorney and the mayor for being able to respond so quickly to a spontaneous resolution like this. I appreciate you all being able to be up and ready. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Speaking of city attorney, we'll move on to city attorney comments.
No comments this time.
Madam City Clerk Treasurer.
Just to let Councilmember Vapurzian know, I have you scheduled to attend the July 23rd Planning Commission meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
That is all from the clerk's office.
Thank you very much. With that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So offered.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say yes.
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 All opposed say no. We are adjourned. Thank you all, and thank you to the residents watching tonight.